Welcome back here to First Things First. We're now joined by FS1 NBA analyst Sarah Kustok.
Great to see you guys.
Sarah, it's
Wonderful.
great to have you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
We are out of the NBA season, but a lot to talk about within the upcoming NBA season. Sarah, the Clippers are arguably the winner of the offseason, landing both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right? But that almost wasn't the case. According to reports, the Clippers called the Rockets about trading for James Harden before they were able to acquire George. Rockets went on to get Russell Westbrook, and there's your NBA landscape. Sarah, would Harden have been a better teammate for Kawhi than Paul George?
I think this is fun for us to theoretically look at, because I believe the call to James Harden, the call about James Harden, Houston and Daryl Morey probably said, yep, not available, and hung up the phone. So I think this is just something for us to take a look at and banter at. You never really know. I think so much of what we do is looking at who would fit with who, but until guys are together, you can't necessarily truly understand how they will fit, how they will play. I think the beauty of what we see in Kawhi and Paul George is that they seem like players that can fit in well with anyone. The one differentiating factor of why I think they're going to be one of the best duos in the league is because of what they do on the defensive end. And that's why I believe that Kawhi and Paul George will be able to take this team to another level, because both of these guys can guard multiple positions depending on who they're facing. We look at how they face up against the Lakers. We look at how they face up against different teams in the West, and you could say, okay, you could toss Paul George on LeBron. You could toss Kawhi on LeBron. But I think these guys can play off the ball, on the ball. They can create their own shots. They're spot-up shooters. You can go through a multitude of things. Do I think James Harden and Kawhi Leonard would be a blast to watch play? Do you think that the talent of James Harden, how he plays offensively, would be something special alongside a player like Kawhi Leonard? Absolutely. However, I think this is something that as we look at it, as we look in the offseason, how they would fit together, it's not necessarily something that was actually a realistic possibility for them to be on the same team.
I mean, it would have been realistic if Daryl Morey decided can't win a title, want to blow it up. I mean, I would have thought most people thought Paul George leaving OKC 1 year after signing an extension would not have been realistic until we saw it, until we saw the draft haul they were able to get. And so, I mean, it would have taken one person in Daryl, because I think the vast majority of people believe James Harden's a better player than Paul George. Yep. That James Harden has been consistently a better player than Paul George. He has been a league MVP and in the MVP running 4 other times. Paul George this year finished 3rd, but other than that, that's his first top 8, 9 finish, I think, in his career. Certainly first top 5 finish. To me, this is an easy one, because it's both hypothetical, in that we are going to get to see Kawhi and Paul George, but we haven't yet. Just like we haven't seen Kawhi and James Harden. Kawhi and James Harden would be as devastating of a 1-2 punch as LeBron and Anthony Davis, and as we could possibly have in the league. When you have a guy in Harden who is in the discussion for best isolation scorer ever, and then a great ball distributor, and then a guy in Kawhi Leonard who's in the discussion for best perimeter defender ever, and a guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands at all times to kill you. To me, that fit is perfect. You couldn't pick another player in the league that would be a better fit next to James Harden than Kawhi Leonard, I would argue. Like, who are the other guys? Joel Embiid, maybe, for interior defense. Anthony Davis for the pick and roll. But that's your short list. I think Paul George also would be a great fit next to Harden for that matter. But that would have been the one way to make this Clippers offseason a couple degrees better. I think Harden and Kawhi would be terrifying along the lines of Steph and Kevin Durant without the redundancy of Steph and Kevin Durant.
Well, this is the thing, though. When you get to this level, a lot of it's about respect. And you're dealing with NBA players on a daily basis in their respect for one another. I watched the press conference yesterday, and the easiness, because I know Kawhi. I don't know Paul George, but I saw the easiness for which Kawhi was exchanging with Paul George. So there's really a high level of respect just in life. Because even though you're signing with a basketball team, Nick, it's more than just basketball. You don't live on the basketball court. The game is only 48 minutes. And you know what I respect about guys? It's not their skill. It's just what they're about. And Dennis Green used to teach me this, Chris. He said, Chris, man, you're a very, very vocal leader, but there are going to be certain guys you're not going to be able to reach. I'll reach them because you know what I'll tell them? Don't listen to him, watch him. Watch how hard he plays the game. Watch how smart he plays the game. Watch how he works out. Watch how he studies. I'll show you a video, because Denny Green videotaped guys coming out the building, and he would have a time log on when you checked in and when you checked out. And he would show it to guys. And he would say, this is how you earn your teammates' respect. So when you don't play defense and you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard's not going to love you, man. He is not going to love you. You might be the greatest basketball player in the world. But when I'm down at the other end of this 94-foot court and I see you have the energy, and when you pass half court, something deflates on you and you can't guard people and you're a great athlete, trust me, the respect level is never there. It is never there when you don't put out the same type of effort. We're all being paid to do a job. That's why Kawhi and Paul George, to me, and the Clippers, are a perfect fit with Doc Rivers, his mentality, how he became a player, how he coaches the game, in the current roster they have. So if you want to talk basketball, positions, one's a point guard, distributor, yeah, but life is not that way in professional sports. You spend a lot of time off the court, and Kawhi was sitting next to a guy yesterday, to me, he was so comfortable with, and that's why Kawhi was successful last year. Lowry's very comfortable with him. Serge Ibaka, you saw him in the car, how comfortable he was with him. And that's a huge part of sports. It's not just the 48 minutes on the court.
And I agree with you. Would they be devastating? Absolutely. I think anyone with James Harden and Kawhi would be devastating. However, that's the difference, is how you feel about what the person is doing on the floor. And that's why I wouldn't say Harden and Kawhi would be a clear-cut better duo, because of that respect they have for what they do. Because when you listen to the press conference, both of those guys continue to bring up, we're the same type of player. We have the same mentality. We care about being two-way players. We respect that part of the game. And so I think all of that in its totality makes a bigger difference just necessarily than the superb talent that James Harden is on the offensive end.
And Nick, that's something personally, like you've even told me. You didn't know me before we started the show, or just knew a little bit about me. You realize, man, this guy's in the Hall of Fame, but I work like I'm a free agent. I work like I ain't got no job, like I don't have no guarantees. And people see that and they respect that. You can project something, what you say, and you can be talented, but at some point, man, it's about what type of effort are you going to show every single day. And that's why we have a great rapport here. We know everyone's going to be working hard. We're all working for the same goals. And that carries over in professional sports and in the locker rooms.
I mean, that's why it comes down to, who do you want pairing next to you if you're Kawhi Leonard, an elite offensive player or a great two-way player? And you see, for Kawhi, maybe that second one was the more important.
Well, okay, well, listen, I think Kawhi would have taken
either
of these guys.
Of course.
But the point that I would make is, I don't think you're saying this, I don't think it's fair to present James Harden as a guy who has not worked as hard as anyone in the league at getting better every offseason. I think he is a guy who maybe his first year or two in Houston, other stars around the league looked at him as one of those nightlife all-stars, and now looks at him as a bit of a workout warrior. Now, does he have the ability defensively that either of these guys do? No. Does he show the consistent effort defensively that either one of these guys do? No. But he's also no longer the, a Vine all-star of bad defensive clips. He's gotten better in that regard, and maybe I am too reliant on just the raw talent. Man, this guy just scored 36 a game and has been one of the top 4 players in the league for the last 5 years. First or second MVP, 4 out of the last 5 seasons. And Paul George is just now entering that conversation. And
people act like Paul George averaged 18 last year.
No, he averaged 28, but that was his first high-volume scoring year. I mean,
and he's how many years removed from a devastating leg injury?
Well, five years removed.
I think he's still on his way up.
Okay, all right. That's fine. I think Paul George is a tier beneath the guys we're talking about here.
Take a break. Sarah will see in a little bit coming up. Have we seen the end of the Eli Manning era? Didn't we ask this last year? We asked this 2 years ago.